Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Davidson, and I'm more commonly known as Mustafa. No relation to Pete. Personal disclaimer, I try to use humor when I'm nervous. Because I want to talk with you, about coping skills, I'm going to do something silly to get it out of my system and help me shake off this anxiety. It's okay to laugh at me. It's time to get serious. Limitless possibilities are in fact available to us all if we're able to see them. But for some, the odds are stacked against us because we have to be taught how to see and recognize those possibilities when they're right before our very eyes. Some of us don't even realize we've been fitted with blinders before we're even dropped off to one of the scariest places a child must go. Kindergarten. I want to talk with you about something that could benefit everyone here. Learning and cultivating healthy coping skills. By a show of hands, anyone here ever had to deal with the anxiety of feeling vulnerable? Or better yet, who here has ever gotten angry? Both anxiety and anger are things that everyone has to deal with at one point or another in their lives. But who teaches us how to cope with these natural feelings? We usually learn how to deal with anger by observing what our parents did when they got angry. And if our parents didn't cope with anger properly, well, that's what we learn too. It's like generational. This arrested development of our emotional intelligence. We have learned that unresolved trauma can lead to a plethora of mental health issues in children and adults. For most of my life, I would allow things to build up and blow up and get into fights frequently. This went on for years, like it was a pressure relief valve. That's how I cope. Despite my constant fighting and the abuse endured at the hands of my father, I didn't come to prison until the age of 33. I didn't even know I had PTSD until I was seen by mental health on that prison barge in Hunts Point. And it was too late to get the help that would have prevented me from losing it then. Because I never learned how to cope properly, I hurt people, some of whom were close to me, and I will forever carry that shame. You see, I was the victim of a brutal stabbing at the hands of my brother who had to endure the same types of abuse I did, and I received no help in the form of counseling from crime victim services. It wasn't until years after I was sentenced that I attended a voluntary program that taught me the coping skills I needed in order to heal. Had the lessons it teaches been ingrained into the core of my being when I was younger, I'm certain I would have not come to prison. Its name, that program, is the Alternatives to Violence Project, or AVP. I want you to visualize a beautiful summer day in the middle of August, between 2:30 and 3 in the afternoon. Now I want you to imagine a 9-year-old boy crying as loud as you've ever heard while being pushed into the streets by his father. Wait a minute, something seriously wrong here. That little boy is as naked as the day he was born, trying to cover his private, and his dad is holding the belt, yelling, "So go play, you little ras, before me dash 2 lash on your backside." It's evident that little boy is both embarrassed and afraid, but you wouldn't be able to sense the underlying rage that he feels towards his helplessness. So I ask you all, How can a little boy who had to endure abuse on that level develop healthy coping skills? Fact of the matter is, by that point, he has already been indoctrinated with toxic coping skills due to what he has observed as normal his entire life. That little boy was me. It has been said, it takes a village to raise a child. But what have become norms in society are allowing us to fail our youth, which in turn are then funneled through the public school to prison pipeline. Our education system is focused primarily on academics, as if it's a given all children are learning healthy coping skills at home, when many are not. When are we going to realize that a curriculum to develop healthy coping skills is not only necessary, but essential, and should be implemented in grade school and reinforced through high school? Mass school shootings and elevated suicide rates in teens are the new normal. Something seriously needs to change. The system is reactive when it needs to be proactive. Why is it that we wait for some misguided youth to commit some degree of assault before they're court mandated to some anger management program? Or worse yet, sentenced to an astronomical amount of time after being tried as an adult when their brains haven't even fully developed yet. Not only are we doing a disservice to our youth, we are effectively doing a disservice to the future. However, we are fortunate because a program that works and can teach the critical thinking methods required to develop healthy coping skills already exists. In fact, AVP began right here in New York State's very own Department of Corrections. The Alternatives to Violence Project was born in the wake of the Attica riots of 1971. I've done volunteer work for AVP with the professor of sociology at John Jay, a United Nations diplomat from Australia, and a retired federal prosecutor behind these walls. They taught me about transforming power, which helped to change my perception and evolve my thought process. I was raised in the Bronx, and a concept as simple as expect the best was alien to me until I learned about transforming power, which is core to the AVP program. It taught me that to expect the best meant for me to always put forth my best effort, when where I come from, we're all taught expect the worst. I also learned that AVP is international now, and there are youth in Australia who benefit from the lessons AVP has to teach. So how come our youth here in New York State don't benefit from the valuable lessons that AVP has to offer? Lessons I believe could have prevented me and others like me from coming to prison in the first place. Is it because there's some type of stigma to place a program that began in prison into our schools? It has been said, small minds talk about people, average minds talk about events, and great minds talk about ideas. AVP began as an idea and is good enough to come out of a New York State prison and be taught to children around the world. So why not allow our youth here to benefit from AVP, which was partially developed by incarcerated individuals? Or is it easier to just send our youth to prison? My name is Paul Davidson, and I want you to think about that.